I saw my first penis at age 4. I was a huge slut, ma'am. No, it was because I saw a flasher. Now, if you don't know what a flasher is, my young friends in the back, it is a man who is wearing gorgeous Italian leather shoes, cashmere socks, a beautiful trench coat, but he shows you his dick. And they do it, like, in public in your town. So when I was little, there was a flasher that was in the library in my hometown. Now you go, what did you do about it? We did what all women do throughout time. We tell the other women, there's a flasher there, don't go there. And that's all you can do. And you go, why didn't you do something? What would we have done? Tell the cops? Like, they give a shit, you know what I mean? Or tell the librarian, excuse me, ma'am, there's a man showing his penis. She would have fainted. So my mother, carrying on the tradition, said to me, Jennifer, when we go to the library, just don't go down that aisle. That's where the flasher is. Oh, but I want to go down that aisle. That's where the books on rhinoceros are. Well, you can't read those books this week. The flasher is usually in that aisle. Well, this one week, I go down a different aisle, and the flasher must have changed it up because he was there. And all of a sudden, I see a flaccid penis, and I was horrified. I mean, I'd never seen a hard penis either, don't get me wrong. I'm not like, I'd never seen a flaccid penis before. All the boys were out around me at age 4. That's not what I meant. Now, it's not what you think, man. It's not what you think. It's not, oh, boo-hoo, sexism. I was so scared and triggered. You don't get it. First of all, I noticed the Italian leather shoes. I was like, ooh, are those spit shined? Beautiful. You know, and then the cashmere socks, and then the gorgeous coat. But then I saw his penis, but I'd never seen a penis before. And I didn't know really what penises were. I was 4 years old. I knew my mom and dad were different genders. I knew there was like, boys have short hair and girls have big tails. And, you know, my mom had boobs, my dad didn't. But I never thought about genitalia. You know, and I had Ken and Barbie. They had the same genitalia. So I probably thought everybody just had what I had, which was just, well, we didn't call it a vagina. We called it a front bum, which it kind of is, you know. And so I thought that's what this man had. And I thought his front bum was turned inside out. Like as if his like intestines were coming out of his stomach, you know. And I was like, ah! I thought he was dying. I was so worried for him. I wasn't offended. I didn't know I was being sexualized. I was like, Mommy, this guy's front bum is turning inside out. He needs help. I really thought he'd opened his coat like, call the ER, the ambulance. And then my mother was like, that was the flasher. I'm like, oh. So, you know, I go home, I tell my little neighbor, Christopher, I saw a man's pee-pee today. And, you know, and he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, they hang out at the library. Didn't your mom tell you? And he's like, no. And I was like, huh. And then looking back on it, that's the day that I learned, but I didn't know I was learning, that there are two different worlds. Little boys go to the library to get books. Little girls go to the library to get books, and that's where guys try to show them their dicks, you know? And that just is how life goes as a woman. You go to the same buildings that men go to, but then other men try to show you their dicks. And so that's life, and you gotta get used to it. Like, I think about flashers and how well they dressed, though. You know, like in my day, you dressed up to go on an airplane, and you dressed up to show a woman your dick. And I appreciate that. Because when Louis C.K. tried to show me his dick, he was just wearing a shitty black t-shirt and jeans. And it's like, listen, you schlub, you can't do a little outfit for me if you're gonna, you know? And listen, I talked about this, like, sort of in the press here and there, but never really told my story, which isn't a big story at all. But because I did talk about that, I'd heard these rumors that he jerked off in front of people, and he had verbally sexually harassed me, but never physical. It kind of got out. I didn't mean for it to, but then it just followed me everywhere I went. Every time I had a Netflix special come out or a book come out, the press would only want to talk to me about Louis. They didn't want to talk to me about my work. And then other people would accuse me, you're only talking about him so you can get attention for your special, which it doesn't work that way. I didn't get any extra attention for any of the work I did. It actually made it worse, and it made people hate me. And so now that I'm retiring from comedy and this album's coming out, I'm like, you know what? I am using it for attention. I will tell you something about Louis. You want to use it for a clip to promote the album? Here we fucking go. So, fuck yeah, lady. I'll forward you the rape threats I get after this. Open your inbox, spring of 2022. I'll send them to you. listen, it's not a big deal in the sense of what happened to me as compared to some other people, but I'll just say this. This is my angle on it, is people love to go, Louis asked for consent to the women he has to jerk off in front of. And that makes you go, oh, well, that is nice. That is nice. But when you really break it down, can you imagine if your boss said to you, hey, Linda, can I jerk off in front of you? And then you go, no, and he goes, oh, totally, all right, I totally respect that. Thanks, though. I'll see you tomorrow at the office. That would change forever, your work relationship. But when it happens in comedy, people are like, yeah, but that's comedians. But it's not really. I mean, we make dirty jokes to each other, but the same way you do with anyone you're familiar with. But it's still a work environment. In fact, it's a work environment you should actually be more careful in because it involves nighttime, the dark, and alcohol, and sometimes hotels and sometimes traveling. You should actually be even more careful to not make a woman feel like something scary is about to happen. So this is my quick story about the wonderful time that the very thoughtful Louis C.K. asked my consent. I get emotional thinking about it because it was so sweet of him. Louis had been a casual acquaintance of mine in the late 90s in New York City, and we both would fly from here to Boston sometimes to do this voiceover for a little cartoon we were on. And then a lot of the comics migrated to LA, as you do, and he was around, and he was great, and he was super funny, and I saw his development from kind of a weird comic in New York who did kind of absurdist humor to the guy in LA that started talking about his personal life, wife and kids, and I saw it happen. I was like, this guy's onto something, he's gonna be big. And we all, thought he was funny. It wasn't quite the way he portrayed it, like everyone looked up to me. It was like, there's tons of people that we thought were funny, but anyway, he was great, and he was around, and a bunch of comics would hang out, all different kinds of levels and all different kinds of ages, and he wasn't super famous yet. And anyway, just, we'd all just go around the corner after we did this show on Vine Street in Los Angeles, and we'd get drinks. And this one night, he'd had it like the set. It was like the set, he'd like had the set. It was like his defining set, and I think he was feeling good. And he was like, hey, you want to get a drink around the corner? Which was just weird of him to specifically ask because, like, yeah, that's where we're all going anyway. And I was like, yeah, sure. And, again, I'd met him 75 times. Like, he was like, not a good friend, but like a peer, and, or not a peer in the sense that I was the same level as him, but it was normal to talk to him. And again, he was married with kids, and I was at that level of my feminism and age where I thought that meant you were probably trustworthy. Like I was kind of naive still. And so, we went around the corner to the bar, and we were the first ones there, and it was a bar that you could, like a bar, you know what a bar is. And then there was an upstairs that had this kind of groovy area where you just sat on pillows. And he's like, let's go up there. I didn't think anything of it. It's the guy I know, married with kids, whatever. And I said, well, the other comics won't be able to see us when they come in. He's like, oh, don't worry about it. They'll find us. So we go up there and we're talking, and then he says, I can't remember exactly, so please don't hold me to this, but he said something along the lines of, what if a guy you knew asked if he could jerk off in front of you? Like, what would you say? And I thought it was just irreverent enough that it sounded like the way comedians talk, and I thought he was trying to work out a new bit, and I was kind of honored that he was maybe asking me my opinion on this bit he's going to do about a guy who asks if he can jerk off in front of people, like some loser guy who jerks off in front of people. He's going to do a bit about imagine if there was such a loser that asks women to do that. So I'm like, oh, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, trying to think of funny things back. And he's kind of looking at me like, no, could I take out my penis and jerk off right now? And I was like, I still didn't get it. And I was like, yeah, I think the punchline should be, I'm still talking like that. And he goes, Jen. And I go, what? And I go, I'm sorry. I mean, I'm kind of paraphrasing. I wish I could get you the exact words, but, and I said, well, aren't we doing a bit? He's like, what did you think this was? And I was like, oh. And then a friend came over, and then he goes, I was just showing Jen pictures of my daughter, and he had photos in his wallet. Isn't that the sick part? That's the grossest part, right? So now, I don't know, the other women that ended up having to see his penis, I'm not saying I did anything better than them. It was just sort of one of those things where I think my complete ignorance of what was happening made it not that fun for him, because I think he got off on people being scared, and I think I wasn't scared just yet in that moment, and so I think it was like we were confused. It just didn't end up happening, and I really regret it. Like, what does his penis look like? Sometimes I lay awake at night. But he said some other shit to me from there that I won't repeat because it's just kind of a bummer. But like, yeah, it kept going on for a little while. Nothing, again, I never felt unsafe around him, but it was just unnecessary comments. And, he wrote me an email once. It was like, hey, I'd like you to open for me on the road, just a couple gigs. And I just said no because I just thought like, I don't know, if he wants to sleep with his opening act, like, that's not for me. And he, there's nothing wrong with wanting to sleep with your opening act, so you should find someone that maybe wants to do that. And so I just said no, but it's just like one of those little things where like, it's not the end of the world. I still had a great career. I didn't need him for anything. But just in general, you can kind of see, I always put it this way, for women in comedy, there's always a threat of rain. So we carry an umbrella everywhere. And for men, they just get to walk out the door and assume it's going to be sunny. We always have to think of something. We always have to be aware that the men that work with us might be trying to get something out of us. I've heard, what did you think this was, so many times. And so anyway, it's just those little things, like they don't destroy you, but they just start to add up and you have to have a different Kevlar on than the men do. And it's less fun. It just changes things a little. That's all I'm saying. Like, I hope I'm saying this to anyone listening who doesn't understand. I don't mean you guys, but I'm just thinking of the album. It just changes things enough that it taints your experience. I said taint. That's why I stopped. And so that's just what it's like being a lady in comedy, right? So, okay, great. So when I saw Dave Chappelle do 17 Netflix specials, and 3 of them were just him defending Louis without even jokes. Like, I just told a story of Louis harassing me with really funny jokes, and that guy couldn't even think of jokes to defend Louis. He just got up there and was like, man, these women. So one of the women that Louis harassed was a receptionist at an agency, and she answered the phone, and he was jerking off, and she was disturbed, and she said she quit the business after that. And Dave Chappelle, on his Netflix special, with 0 jokes, just sitting on a stool smoking, one of his vape things, uncool, he said she had a brittle-ass spirit for leaving the business, and Martin Luther King wouldn't have done something like that. And I'm like, all right, relax, dude. First of all, Martin Luther King was a black man in the 60s leading the civil rights movement. He needed to be strong. And he was. And there's very few people on the planet that will ever compare to him. But a little lady answering phones at a talent agency, she should not need to have the strength of Martin Luther King to deal with her job, because men should not be masturbating on the phone to her, men that are clients and men that will be protected and men that will keep getting jobs despite her having to quit. So this is why I say, oh, thank you. This is why when I talk about Dave Chappelle, I'm dead serious about how fucking dangerous he is for culture, because every time Dave did that story, I start getting tweets and death threats and hate mail. Like, yeah, you have a weak-ass spirit. And it's like, that's why it's bad. And that's why I can't even imagine how bad it is for trans people. Like, just be fucking funny and be fucking cool. I know this part isn't funny, but I'm cool. Do you see? Okay.